There we go. Okay, guys, we're going to get going. So I'll keep my intro very, very brief as I realize that everyone's here to listen to Erin and not to me. Thank you so much, Erin, for coming onto the Movement Lab this week. I'll hand it over to you, and then we'll have 10 minutes at the end for question and answers. If anyone's got a question as we're going through, feel free to pop it in the chat and we can pick it up at the end of the call. Okay.
Perfect. Thanks, Jill. Okay, so everyone can see my screen, my slides. All good? Okay, great. Excellent. Well, I am so excited to be presenting for this Movement Lab. I have been a huge fan of Wild Strong and everything that the company does, and been following their work. And I work with older adults. I work in assisted living communities. I work at senior centers, and I try to incorporate games and play and movement skills for older adults. It's the demographic that I really love to work with. I've been trained in a parkour for seniors format that was available. And so it's given me some opportunities to weave in some of those skills into where I teach for older adults. So this is going to be right up your alley. Everyone here, I'm sure, is using games and play with their people. And we're going to talk about how we can adapt those games for older adults and contribute to fall resiliency. So we probably know how important addressing falls are. And there's a lot of talk about fall prevention for older adults because it is the #1 reason here in the States that they're getting injured from a fall, and it's a leading cause of death for people over 65. So establishing some fall resilience, which is a term I really love to use, is helping them not get seriously injured from a fall, be able to rebound from a fall, and have the skills and the strength to do that. So we're going to talk about characteristics of fall resilience and how we can train those, and incorporating fun and play. So those of you that are with Wild Strong, you know this, and this is like speaking, preaching to the choir, the importance of fun and play and keeping people coming back to physical activities. And then how we can make those games interactive so that we have this social component as well, that people are getting to know others, and it's adding to that adherence to physical activity. And then how we can make that adaptable for all levels. So when you work with an older adult, I say, you work with a 75-year-old, you've worked with one 75-year-old, because there's so much variety in their physical capabilities. And it could be due to injuries in the past. It could be maybe an illness. So how can we still incorporate and give them fun and play if they're in a wheelchair, if they have a walker? So ways that we can scale things. And we're going to talk about the characteristics for what makes someone fall resilient. And a lot of this is based on research. And I'll have an index of all the research that is shown to make someone more fall resilient. So if you really want to geek out on all this stuff, you'll have links to all the research. And that is being confident in their movement. Fear of falling is one of the top reasons that people fall, which seems a little counterintuitive. If I'm fearful, I'm going to be more careful. So I'm going to walk slower, and it actually makes them more susceptible to falling. Having strong lower leg muscles and foot muscles, how do we train that? Visual tracking. So we've been able to see that how people are tracking their environment when they move through it is showing if they're more at risk for falls, or if they're going to be more anticipatory and can be more resilient to falling. Able to move quickly. So we talk about speed and power. What happens if you trip and you need to throw a foot out in front and be able to catch yourself? So having developed those speed skills. And then reacting to our environment. So how do we adapt when something's maybe coming at our head, that we can duck underneath it, we can step over things, we can clear objects. And then being able to withstand balance challenges. So that could be, somebody bumping us and that perturbation, and being able to still stay upright during those incidences. So I'm going to show you all ways that we can train these things that's going to feel more playful and gamified, and less like a traditional exercise class. So it's not really about sets and reps. It's about giving people opportunities to play, and they get to practice these skills that help build these characteristics. So benefits of fun and play. And so for those of you that are with Wild Strong, again, preaching to the choir, you know how important this is. And I come from a fitness background, and I really try to talk about this a lot with my fitness colleagues because a lot of us that are in fitness, we love fitness. I love sets and reps. I love a group exercise class. I love somebody telling me what to do, but a lot of people don't. And how do we get access to that group of people that don't want to do that? It's not fun for them, and they see benefits, but they're like, this is just not, that's not my jam. So if we can make it fun and make it playful, we're going to make it more sticky of a movement program that they want to come back to. So it also helps improve with that social cohesion. So I always say if we can make our movement programs and our physical activity experiences fun and have people feel connected, if they have at least one of those ingredients, people are going to come back to it. And that's what matters, is we want them to enjoy physical activity. So if we make it playful, we get all of these benefits, and it can help them overcome fear. So fear, again, is such a big aspect with older adults and frail older adults. How can we get them to move through that fear? And having things gamified helps with that. Blank slide. Okay. So this is something I think about when I'm working with older adults is there's this Freed's frailty phenotype, and how do we scale things for older adults that's in front of us? And a lot of times when I'm teaching in a senior living community, I have people in all three categories. So somebody that's robust, they're independent living, they can do things for themselves. They have a reasonable amount of stamina, they can stand, they can walk. They can do a lot of things. And then we have pre-frailty. So people that are exhibiting, weakness, they don't have the energy, there's exhaustion. These are some of like the 5 characteristics of people that are starting to get into that pre-frailty type of situation where they don't have that stamina. And you can see this a lot in class because I have a lot of people in class and they, 10 to 15 minutes of standing and they're good. Like they need to sit down. That's a lot for them. And you can see it in their strength. Like you give them a cup of water or a bottle of water and they can't open the cap. They don't have the grip strength to open a cap on their water bottle or whatever they bring in. So that's a sign that there's frailty there. And then we have the frail. So those are people that have incorporated all of these things, 3 or more. They don't have the stamina, they don't have the strength. They have slow gait speed, any of these things. So being able to think about what are we going to teach to people? What are the movement skills that we want to be delivering? And how do we scale that? So a robust person might be jumping, but a pre-frail person might not be jumping. And a frail person, what are they going to be doing? Maybe taking big steps or something like that. But thinking about this so we can scale the classes for each of these types of people. Oh, okay. And I will be taking questions at the end, so feel free to pop them in the chat. I'll leave some time for questions. So one of the things that we found is dual tasking is a really great way to improve balance, walking speed, and it reduces the risk for falls. And it really helps them with neuroplasticity of the brain, getting your brain to do 2 things at once. And we do this a lot, but we don't really think about it. It's like, you're walking and you're digging something out of your purse and maybe you don't see that curb and you have to change your stepping pattern and correct for that. And so dual tasking is a way that we can train for helping that reduce risk of falls. A few ways I like to do this, and I do have videos for a lot of my slides, just not for this one, is a walking relay, is getting people to do 2 things at once. So they are, again, we have a group factor here. And there's one that I've done is fill the cup relay. So they have a cup of water. They need to go to the next person and you can space people out however far distance, space you have. I do this in a long hallway in a senior living community, and they have to pour their cup into the next person's cup, pour their water into the next person, and then they walk down the line. So it's a fill the cup relay and it's timed. So, okay, how long does it take everybody to finish this relay course? And whatever that time is, we just make note of it. Okay, it was 1 minute. We're going to do this again, and we're going to see if we can beat our time. So now we have a team effort and they're working together to try to move faster, increasing that gait speed. We'll talk more about that. Um, to fill the cup challenge. So, and they're cheering each other on. And the great thing about this is you're always going to have those competitive people that are going to want to challenge themselves and walk faster. And that's great. And you're going to have the people that don't feel comfortable with that. And they're going to have their cane and they're going to walk at the speed that they're comfortable at. Cool. That's great. But their teammates are still going to cheer them on. And I love seeing that. So Fill the Cup relay has been a great one. And you can do this. I've done this for Halloween. Out here is a big thing, costumes. And so the superhero relay, where they need to tie a cape around themselves. So they're tying the cape while they're walking to the next person. And then they have to untie the cape. And the other person is tying their cape while they're walking to the person in front of them. So I find that the cape hopefully it makes them feel like a superhero, like a capable person. And we do the same thing. So we do the relay 2 or 3 times and time them and see how well they do on the first one, and do a second round and third. And it always is that the second and third round, they're getting used to it, that they're improving their time. And then we're also, again, increasing that walking speed and encouraging them to increase that walking speed. So dual tasking is a great way to train for that. Another one is visual tracking. So one of the things that has been found with research is that people that are more prone to falling are not tracking their environment in a way that's helping them anticipate the next step. So somebody that's fearful, you could give them an obstacle course and they're going to look at the next step in front of them. They're going to look, okay, I need to step on this step, this platform, but they're not looking at what's ahead. And so that's not allowing their body to adapt and plan for that. So how can we do this when there's a high fear of falling and we have frailty? And one of the ways I do this is by having a tape obstacle course. So I'll show you this here. So this is Diane, and she has to choose a path. She needs to go on the yellow tape or the orange tape, and she's choosing the yellow tape. So she has to plan which route she's going to take before she goes on it. So she planned the yellow and she's going across. So at the very beginning, she's crossing the river. I call it crossing the river at the largest point that she feels that she can cross. And there's also a railing on the wall that you can't see. So we're giving her an environment that she can fail safely. If her foot does not land exactly on the tape, there's like no repercussions from that. And it's building her confidence, right? So when we have fear and frailty, we want to give them early wins. Like this person is not asking me to do something that's super scary for me that I don't know if I can do or not, but I'm stepping on the floor and they feel safe in that environment. And there's so many ways that we can elevate this for people that are more robust. We could have a course with, any blue object they're going to step on, or different ways that they have to look at the course ahead of them and decide the route. So we're getting that anticipation going. And so tape, again, is a great way to work with obstacle courses. I've done chalk outside so that they're working in a one-dimensional environment. And I know those of you with Wild Strong do a lot of things outdoors. And I do things outdoors as well, but a lot of my people feel safe inside because it's a controlled environment. And sometimes that's where we need to start with people and then work them to the outdoors. And you can add carrying objects to this too. So now we have a dual task element. So not only do they need to plan, but they need to carry an object. So movement obstacle courses. So I think that this is probably something a lot of those of you that are with Wild Strong are really familiar with. And giving them, it's a great way to give movement variety, right? How are we going to get from point A to point B? Floor is lava, kind of a thing. But giving them meaningful movements throughout that course. And so it could be going under and over objects. It's using targeted steps, like you need to step on these items or on this X on the floor or this piece of tape on the floor. Balance beams, so they're practicing that inline step pattern, sit to stands. So you'll see a variety of things that I've done in my classes for those that are robust. These are my senior center ladies. And this is somebody, again, more frail, but she is stepping on all these X's that are on the ground, which I don't know you can see that well. And now this is somebody that's a little more robust, and she's doing that same thing. Walking backwards. These are balance trainers that I have, that I take to the senior living community. That's from Parkour. And then for, again, my frail older adults, we're using chairs and helping them put weight in their hands as like a sense of crawling. So this is how we're taking that movement skill of crawling and scaling it to somebody that maybe is not comfortable or can't get down onto the floor. But they're getting used to using objects to stabilize themselves. And then we have sit to stands. So they're going across the line and sit to stands in their chairs. So these are all practicing meaningful movements to help keep them stable. And those sit to stands are a great way to work, strengthen the legs. So it's not, we're not going to do a bunch of squats, but we're going to work down this line and do sit to stands. And by the end, you know, they go through the course 3 times and they've done maybe 15 sit to stands. Sneaky way to add in that leg strength. Okay. Music is a really great motivator to get people moving. It releases those feel-good hormones. It excites the autonomic nervous systems. It primes us for action. It gets us away from those unpleasant experiences. And I'm sure we've all felt this. You feel a song come on and it changes your mood and you want to move to it. And we can really do a lot to leverage music to make movement more fun. And it's not so much of a regimented, again, sets and reps. It's as we're simply moving to music. And that helps offer that movement variety and movement variability. So I like to use music that they're familiar with. I ask them, like, tell me about a song that sticks out to you in your high school years. Something like that. So they get to share something about themselves, and we can incorporate those into class. So it could just be we play that song and people move however they want to move to it. Or you can give them ideas for movements for a song. Like my people at the senior living community, they love Hokey Pokey and they love chicken dance. So they're moving around in circles for these songs and they're having fun. They're not thinking about the exercise component of it. They're just moving in different ways that they wouldn't normally move because music is a part of it. So it's giving them that movement variability and helping them build that confidence and have fun with their movement. And that's what it's all about, right? We want them to have fun. So these are some ways that I've used dance to help with that balance and mobility and helping to reduce that fall rate. Because we know that dance is a great tool to help reduce falls because there's so much incorporated with dance. I'll show you some things that I've done in my class, and I've used a great program by a colleague of mine called Ballroom Basics for Balance. And you'll have a link to this slide deck so you'll have access to all of these links. And it's a way to learn really basic ballroom steps. So if you're not a dancer, it's really just stepping and how we can get people stepping laterally, backwards, weight shifting, and all of that's included in dance. So this is like a really basic swing dance move. It's weight shifting side to side, stepping backwards. So these are simple, but they hear the music and it helps ignite these movements. So we have lateral movement, backwards movement. You can add a vestibular component so that you're looking over your shoulder each time you are stepping back. But it's not so much, thinking about how they're moving when the music is in play. it kind of takes away that fear factor. So you can go laterally and then backwards and forwards. So Ballroom Basics for Balance is a great resource for that. They give you steps and music that you is suggested for these things. So a lot of it's music that they're familiar with, and it really helps with all of these different movement skills. Speed change, so it's a cha-cha-cha, step back, cha-cha-cha, step forward. So I highly recommend dancing as another tool. Speed work. So we talked about fast walking and the importance of gait speed. And gait speed is a way that we can determine someone's fall risk. So the up and go, trying to think of the acronym, TUG, was where people stand up and they walk around a cone and they come back. And that's a really standard test that we use a lot of times for older adults to see what their fall risk is. Can they walk quickly enough? Can they turn the corner and come back? And if there's a slow walking speed, we know that there's a high risk of falls. And that's another sign of frailty. So how do we get them working faster and not just walking faster, but moving faster? And this is another way that I've incorporated music to get people to move faster. And it's really simple, but simply toe tapping, like they are just tapping and keeping beat with the music. And they can move their foot side to side, up and down, side to side, but they need to keep beat with the music. And so the music is the accountability for their speed. And I found this is another way that it seems so simple, but it's giving them an early win. And I had somebody come to class and I talked to them. I'm like, we're going to work on speed today. And she says, she goes, Erin, I only have one speed. And it's kind of true, right? I mean, if you're not involved in a sport or if you're not trying to catch yourself from a trip, there's really not a lot of reason to move quickly. And so just like muscles atrophy, our speed atrophies. So how can we do this? So using music, these are some songs that I've really liked that have a fast beat. Lay Down Sally, wonderful one. And they're toe tapping to that. And once they get that early win, like, oh, I can keep beat with this, then we can build on top of that. So we're helping to build that confidence, change their belief system on what they're capable of. I've also done things with hands. So this is nunchuck socks. I was doing parkour at home, so we've done this with Kleenex too, and they're flicking, right? They got to flick, and we're pretending like there are bugs that we need to like kill with your Kleenex. And I've done this with socks too. So it's getting them quick with their hands and their feet. And being really silly with it. So Land of a Thousand Dances is a really fun song I've used with like Kleenex flicking and getting them to move quicker. Okay. All right, and then the next thing we're going to talk about is forward head posture and neck mobility. I try to work in neck movement anytime we can. So we were talking about in dancing, turning your head back and getting that vestibular component, but also getting them to mobilize their neck. So many times, not only do we have this, but there's not a lot of movement going on, which decreases their spatial awareness. And when we're talking about being able to adapt to our environment, we need to be able to see our surroundings and anticipate anything that might take us out. So forward head posture, it changes the center of our gravity, right? It moves our center of gravity forward. It contributes to core balance. And how do we get them pulling their head back? So I talk about chicken neck, like you're kind of pecking, chin tucks. I've also done visual scavenger hunt because so many times their head is fixed in this position and they're not moving. We walk down the hallway and I'll tell them that there are 5 pieces of tape or 5 words you need to find. And they're between this space in the hallway. And those words could be up high, they could be down low, but I just want you to wander up and down this hallway and see if you can count 4 to 5, find all pieces of tape. I've also used words too. So like really encouraging, empowering words like strong, stable. And we'll talk about this more, capable. And it's like there's 4 words in this hallway, and I need you to find all 4 and then tell me what they are. So again, just getting them mobilizing their head and neck. Another fun thing that I've done, and this is actually from one of my participants, is using your participants to help you fuel your classes, like getting their ideas and seeing how they're moving is a great way to get ideas for your classes. It's not just us coming up with ideas, but I'll show you a little. This is Joe, and you can't hear it. um, but she has this chant that but okay, they're so silly. So she has this chant, and I was talking about, we're gonna have our chicken necks, and we're gonna go back and forth with our chicken necks or our turkey necks. And she said, that reminds me of this song I used to do in like high school. We were the Gopher Girls. And many times in my senior living class, it is all women. And the chant is, "We are the Gopher Girls." And you do your head stick. "We are the Gopher Girls. We'll go for you if you go for us. We are the Gopher Girls." So Joe sings it for us. She leads the song. We all do our head bobbing to it. And then we say, to make it more effective, you need to have your gopher teeth and then get your head bobbing going. So Joe leads that, and she helps us with get our head bobbing in. And you can't hear it, but there's just always so much laughter. Like they just think it's the funniest, silliest thing. And it's best when like our participants can lead these things. And again, we're getting out of sets and reps. Like, let's do this for 30 seconds. Kind of boring. But if you have the Gopher Girls song, if we have a gentleman in class, we'll say, "We are the Gopher Girls and the Gopher Guys." So a fun way to bring that in to class. Okay, fast walking. So we talked about speed. How do we work gait speed? And we talked about doing the relay. So the relay is a great way to get people to try to decrease their time as a team. Like, how do we get faster as a team? And another way that this is very task-based is getting them to walk faster with a newspaper. So this is a relay that I do with my participants. They have to grab a newspaper, they have to put it on the front, and then they have to walk around and walk so fast that the newspaper is sticking to their body. All right, and then they have to make that turn. So the competitive people, they can race if you have a competitive group, but they don't necessarily have to. But it's training that walking speed. And a lot of people that I do this drill with, when I see them walk normally, they tend to have a slower walking speed. And it's not because they can't move faster. It's like there's no reason to. But now you gamified it, and now they're walking at a faster pace, and they have a lot of fun with that. With the newspaper relay, you could have 2 teams, and if instead of making it competitive, you just have them, team 1, they go on team 1, and then they go on team 2 and see how long it takes them to rotate through. But that walking speed is really important, and it has been seen as like a functional vital sign. So this is a fun way to train that faster walking speed. Okay. And then this is one, external cueing, and I think that this is a lot of what I've heard Wild Strong does, is how do we get people moving in different ways without using internal cues? Lift your knees up high, flex your foot, tuck your chin, all these internal cues that we use. And for people that might not have a lot of body awareness, or they're pretty sedentary, that doesn't really click with them. And we found that research has shown that external cues changes that focus, right? So I'm not thinking about myself so much, but now I'm thinking about something different, and it's helping with that motor learning. So leveraging external cues is a great way to help people move differently and not be and kind of take their own flair on things. So these are some silly walk warm-ups that I've used with my classes. Ooh, I don't know. Okay, I can hear that. I don't think you guys can. So archery, and this is getting them moving through all planes of motion, right? So they're pulling back on the bow, they're getting that thoracic turning, they're walking like a gorilla, so now their center of gravity is lower. They're walking in a little bit lower stance. We're getting different movement from our shoulders. Um, so just funny ways to walk. And when we start with this, we kind of open that door to silliness and play. And it really starts with us putting socks on. So instead of high knee lifts, you're pulling up your long socks. And then ski jumps. So again, we have hip hinging, we have a little squat, and then we also are working our ankles and on our calf muscles. Um, and then cowboy with a lasso. So we have a wide stance. You're on your horse, and then we're getting different shoulder movements in there. And so chicken crossing the road. We have the head turning. We have to get the head turning in. We have the hinging and then moving faster, right? So they have to quickly pick up their speed, get to the other side of the road. Bowling, we have more of that lunging pattern and they're reaching towards the floor. And stepping on lily pads. So they have a narrow stance, right? You're stepping with your feet together and that decreases that base of support. So it's challenging their balance. But it's just fun, silly ways to get them moving differently. And I call it like the silly walk warm-ups. And there's all kinds of different things you can do. And I think, thinking about animals that you can be as a fun place to start, or sports that you can play, like you're pitching a baseball, and letting people just kind of roll with it however they want to do that. All right, strong feet. This is another characteristic that we've found that makes people more resilient to falling. Strong feet. So strong plantar flexor muscles, right? If we lift our heels up, we are working those plantar flexor muscles. So how do we train that? And one of the great ways that I like to do this is, and you can use this as a silly walk, is ninja feet. So you're up on the balls of your feet, your heels are lifted a little bit. So it's not like we're really high up on our heels, but the heels are just barely off the floor. And it's like you're being a sneaky ninja, right? So that they are quiet with their feet. They are making deliberate steps, but it's only the balls of their feet that is making connection with the floor. So this is ninja feet. You can kind of get an example of this. And they're walking around. So it's also challenging balance because less base of support. And it's getting them to front load, right? So now their weight is forward. And then how can they move, pivot around on their ninja feet? A lot of times we talk about coming back into a squat, and that's great. But how do we also train forward, putting our weight forward and being able to control that? So Ninja Feet is a great way to practice that. And then if you want to stay with that silly walk warm-up kind of thing, you're ninja and you are sneaking up on somebody, but you need to make sure there's nobody behind you. So now you have the ninja feet, but you're also mobilizing the head and neck and looking either side. So training those lower leg muscles in a fun way. And it's also training lowering those knees or loading the knees. Okay. We're also going to talk about interactive games and group classes. So that social cohesion is super important component to getting people coming back to physical activities. And these are some rates that they found in adherence rates. When people have a form of socialization, they are way more likely to return back to an activity. And if they feel like they have a support network, that helps too. What I've found is with my senior living people is we do classes inside a lot. I live in a winter state, so there's definitely weather to contend with out here. And they start to build friendships, right? And then they're having so much fun in class. They're like, this is fun. I'm enjoying myself. I see these people every Monday and Friday. So when I take classes outside, it makes them more likely to come outside because a lot of them don't really want to go outside, but they will because their friends are out there and because they know they're going to have a good time in class. So that's how I've been able to get people outside is it starts with that social support. And it's like, well, all my friends are doing it, so I guess I'll do it too. And they usually end up really enjoying it outside. Usually what happens is I take class outside and I leave because I have to, go to another job, and they're still hanging out outside and enjoying the sun and talking and drinking their water. And that giving them that space after class to socialize is really important component of class. And we can help develop that socialization in our classes and getting people to work together, teaming up, group activities like the relay. So these are some things that I've done: partner drills. So partner games, and getting people, partnering up and maybe learning something about each other. So, find a partner and then tell your partner the city and state that you were born in, or where you were born, or your favorite food. Something that's like a really quick, 1-2 word kind of introduction thing. And then these are different ways that they can work together. So this is something that I put on my Instagram account. So they're passing their one leg balance as they're passing the ball, perturbation training. They can be standing in different, they can have one foot in front of the other. If they're passing the ball, we would like to see if they can do it without holding onto the wall, but it's there if they need it. But it's also just, building that partnership and getting people to work together so they're not just isolated in their exercise. So more partner games. Another one that I've done is, again, this is helping to adapt, right? Reaction drills. So it's high and low. There's the small ball is being passed high, the low ball is just being rolled. So they have to coordinate their timing and in the passing. So it's all about, reacting and adapting to our environment. And then we have this team component. So that's been a really fun one. And then what I've done with some of my more frail older adults, this is my senior living people, is getting them to using passing drills as a way to get them to hinge and get them to working backwards. So in this particular seated ball pass, they need to hinge in their chair to roll the ball to their person in the back, and then the person in the back is going to pick up the ball and hand it to the person in the front. Person in the front needs to look back and reach back. So this is another movement that they tend to miss out on a lot, is this backwards, movement, being able to see what's behind them and being able to reach behind them. And if we're doing it in a seated position, they feel safe there. And it's, we have that partner drill component. You could, with that partner passing drill, that person in the back could be far enough away that they need to sit to stand in order to hand that ball back. And it's also something that somebody in a wheelchair or needs to be seated could do. So it brings that inclusivity into that partner game. And in other ways you can use partners. So mirroring movements. So if you are having people, one person is the leader, the other person is just doing whatever that person is doing. And they've actually found, this is something that I read recently, that it helps improve empathy for others when we're mirroring their movements. And it's another great way to make people feel like that connection with somebody else. And then they're determining their movements, right? We're not dictating it to them. They are choosing that. We can also do this with a partner where one partner has a pool noodle and they are poking at the other partner. So the other partner has to dodge and go around the noodle. And they could do this down by their feet too. So now they have to, again, adapt and react. They need to step over the noodle or whatever movements they need to do to dodge that noodle. And it brings in that movement variability. And how can we adapt games for all levels? So in class, a lot of times when I'm working with older adults, like we talked about, that robust to frailty. So I have everybody in between, somebody in a wheelchair, somebody that might not be in a walker or maybe in a walker, somebody that's really robust and can live independently. And how do we give them a physical activity experience where it's inclusive? So I've paired ambulatory adults with people like in a wheelchair. So now maybe they're doing an obstacle course together and they're being pushed in the wheelchair, and that wheelchair person has to tap cones with their feet, or maybe they need to reach for objects. They're being wheeled in an S pattern. So that person that's pushing is also getting that turning, that different movements, different directions. We've also had people circle up. So if somebody that needs to be seated, we have a circle. So now they feel like they are a part of this group. They belong. And I find circles are a great way to set up your classes to bring in that belonging and that inclusivity. It's not all about people watching me lead a class. It's about us having this experience together. And so that wheelchair person can be a part of that. And we can even go around the circle. Like, tell me what movement you think is going to feel good in your body today. And everybody goes around and somebody does the shoulder roll. So everybody does shoulder rolls. And the next person, what do you think is going to feel good? And maybe they do, whatever, they reach their arms up. And so we all reach our arms up. So it's something that is inclusive, and it includes those people that maybe aren't able to stand or don't want to. And passing games. So anytime we're passing a ball, it's this like shared thing that we're doing together. So I find the ball passing is a great way to bring that cohesion in, and we can even add speed to this. So sometimes I'll say, like, how quick can we get the ball around the circle? And we time it. Okay, we pass it around in 30 seconds. Okay, let's see if we can pass it even faster. And so we'll time ourselves with our ball passes. So again, we add that speed component, and everyone can be a part of that. So when we're talking about games and play, it's all about bringing an uplifting environment, right? It's all about having fun and having this be a joyful place. And not only do we do this with the games that we play and the activities that we give them, but this can also happen with the environment that we create and the language that we use in our classes. So creating an environment that brings fun and intriguing challenges is one way that we are showing people that, I think you can do this. And I found that when I brought out these balance trainers, which is what you see at the top here, those wooden balance trainers that we use in parkour, I brought those out to the senior living people, and they were used to a lot of chair classes. And I thought, I don't know if they're going to do this. I don't know if they're going to take on these trainers. And I gave them the option to crawl over the trainers so they could have their hands on the countertops and not do the trainers. But every single one of them did the trainers. I had a lady that she pushed her walker to the side and she went on the trainers. And so when we're creating that inviting environment, we're also telling them, like, hey, I think you can do this. And that brings that uplifting component. And we're using the words that are uplifting. So it's not, don't fall, it says you could die. We are trying to use more positive words. So instead of using things like fall, break, prevention, risk, death, decline, in our classes, we're using things like balanced, adaptable, and even putting classes not so much as in this is a fall prevention class or a fall resilience class, but this is a movement class, and we're weaving in, this is how you can stay steady. This is how you can be more balanced as we lower our center of gravity. This is, we're helping your feet be really strong and resilient to falls. And you weave that into the language in class, and we keep it really positive. And I try not to even use the word fall a lot in class. I try to use more of these positive words. And I'll even put these in chalk if we're outside on the ground. And again, with the visual walking and trying to do that scavenger hunt. As I always want these words in front of them because I want them to feel empowered. I want them to feel like they can do these things, and they don't need to be bubble wrapped, but I believe that they can be strong and resilient. And that's actually something that I give them these are silicone bracelets that say strong and resilient. And I give them so that they can keep looking at those words and start to form those beliefs about themselves. And this is a lot based on work by Dr. Rebecca Levy. She wrote Breaking the Age Code book, and how much positive words and positive framing of aging really helps people's health, well-being, and their physical abilities. So I think we can create an environment in our classes that is uplifting and is empowering for them, just with the language that we use. Okay. So that is it for my presentation for the giving you some ideas to help build more fall resilient older adults. I feel free to pop any questions in the chat. I will just tell you a little bit about what I do outside of here if you want to follow me in my work. I have a podcast called Second Act Fit Pros, and Jill and Andrew have been so kind to be on that podcast. And I talk about health fitness professionals, leaders in the field that are committed to improving the health and well-being of the over 50 population. I also have a website, secondactfitpros.com. I have blog posts where I talk about experiences that I've had, insights that I've had working with older adults. I have a newsletter, and so feel free to check out my website and connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I'm not as active. I'm more active on LinkedIn. Or feel free to reach out to me too via email. I'm always happy to hear from others. And I was telling Jill before this call, I would love to connect with others that want to work with older adults and have some kind of movement exchange, share ideas on how we can make things fun and playful and the games that we can do and make them adapted and inclusive for those that maybe aren't able to, aren't as robust. How do we do that? So I'm always loving to hear from other people in this field. And then you'll get a copy of this, and yep, this is the research index, so you'll get all this, and that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Erin. That was really fascinating. I'm sure there are a lot of questions. I saw Andy got in there first with, have you used any of the Dance for Balance with people with Parkinson's?
Yes, I do have people with Parkinson's in I've had people with Parkinson's in class, so I haven't done a full like Parkinson's only class, but they do have programs too. Dance for PD is a whole program based on doing dance for Parkinson's, people with Parkinson's disease. So I have had people in class, and we've done dance, and it's a really powerful tool for people with Parkinson's.
Nice, thank you. And another question from Catherine about any other resources on inclusion and engagement with wheelchair users.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would say, yeah, trying to create those games, like I said, like how I've adapted some games for wheelchair users is how I make them inclusive. But I think anytime I go into class, I always have to anticipate there's going to be somebody that might be in a wheelchair or just does not want to stand. And I want to give them that autonomy and agency to not stand if they don't want to. So I think sometimes we just we always need to think about whatever movement skill we're teaching, and can it be adaptable to wheelchair people, and how do we do that? And so sometimes it means that we need to change our course and what we planned for the day. But this is really where I found is having seated games that they can all participate in.
So also, just for Catherine, there are some good resources on the previous movement lab that we did on games and play around ideas for scaling. I think it's the step model or the tree model as well. So how you can kind of scale up and scale down the games depending on who's participating and their why. Did anybody else have any questions? Oh, Sarah, language. Sorry, we've got two more. Resource for the balance trainers. Suzanne, were you meaning the ones that they use in parkour, the wooden?
Yes.
The wooden ones.
I do have a yes, there is a I'll have to share a link afterwards, but there is a on the online there's a website that shows you how to make these, and they're really simple. But yeah, I can share that link with you because it is just wood glued together.
Good question from Sarah Language, which is actually a question that we were talking about before we went on, Erin, which is about when people are reluctant to play and join in the games?
Yeah.
How do you sort of manage it?
Yeah. I always, joining games is always an invitation. And I think the thing that I always convey at the beginning of class is, like, you know what's best for you today. You know what movements are best for you today. And if you choose not to be a part of the game, like, just being here and observing is still being a participant. And so I welcome that, and there's no shame in that whatsoever. So I try to release that shame from them, and always make sure that they know that everything that they do in class is a choice, and we're all there to respect our own choices and decisions and what we make in class. So it's never a forced thing, and I try to make that clear up front. So some people choose not to, and sometimes I just know the people that aren't going to want to work with a partner, and having something in mind for them. Like, instead of passing it to a partner, a ball to a partner, you're going to toss the ball back and forth, to yourself, and just having something else in mind for them to participate in, and also making it okay if they rather just sit it out.
We have one person in our older population class who didn't like playing games for about the first 2 months, but was very happy to be the referee. So, so
That's funny.
we
Yeah.
let him be the referee, and that was fun. And now, but he joins in quite happily now. But initially, he didn't want to do it at all.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's a great way to involve them. Yeah.
Um, does anybody have any other questions for Erin? We've got a few minutes left. Yeah, lots of ideas.
Mm-mm.
Working with
Well,
dementia.
yeah. Dementia's tough. So what I've done with the senior living community is I've worked with the staff there, to recruit people from memory care to class that they think can follow class, because it manifests itself so differently in people. And some people are perfectly fine coming to a class and contributing and being a part of it, and they love it. And some people, it's not enjoyable, it's confusing, and it's not something that they want to be a part of. So I've really relied on staff to recruit memory care people to class, and I found that they do just fine. I mean, they are happy to be with other people and doing interactive type games, but I do think it takes a certain person with dementia that can find enjoyment in class, and having staff members that can kind of help you select those people has been really important, because I've just gone into like a memory care class and done a movement class, and it's, you just never know what you're walking into. It can be really challenging.
Last one from Athena about how do you advertise your classes or get started in a community?
Yeah. So for my senior living folks, they do a lot of internal advertising for classes, but I make it a point to knock on people's doors and invite them to class. So they get to know me as an instructor. I come in early beforehand and try to give people that personal invitation for class. And also for, I think somebody was talking about, like, how much do you ask before starting a new group? A lot of times with the senior living community, it's anybody that wants to show up can show up, which means that you have to be really super adaptable, because you never know who is. But sometimes I've done like more advanced classes, um, and I try to get people that are in independent living that can do more standing stuff. But a lot of times, I can ask people before class, like, is there anything you think I should know about before we start class? And let them say, like, yeah, my shoulder's really bothering me, or I really don't want to stand today. And just kind of getting a gauge for what their comfort level is, and maybe any pain they're experiencing before class. Um, and just try and give them lots of opportunities to take care of themselves in class, because you just never know what's going on with people, and psychologically and physically. So it's a lot of just kind of seeing where people are at, uh, in before class, and getting their mental state.
Okay, I'm going to say this is the last question. We've got 3 minutes. Catherine, how do you approach building a relationship with your centre,
Um,
with the senior living centre? How do you
yeah.
classes there, I guess?
So there was some luck involved. I reached out to the senior living community place that's really close to my house, and I reached out to the activities coordinator there and just said, "Hey, I'm a fitness professional. I have these are my credentials. I'd be interested in teaching for you." And they were welcome to it because my experience has been a lot of, at least out here, a lot of senior living communities they use their staff for teaching movement classes, and it tends to be pretty like sit and be fit type stuff. They don't have a lot of a movement background or ideas on ways to make classes challenging and creative. So they really look a lot to people in the community that want to come in and teach. So I made that first approach, and I was lucky enough to have an activities coordinator at this senior living community that was really open to doing more challenging things and doing standing type stuff because I have had some that say, that all the seniors need to be seated, even if they're walking themselves to class. If they're going to do an exercise class, they need to be seated, which is very unfortunate. So finding one that was wanted somebody from the outside and was willing to, to do something a little new and different and innovative. But a lot of times I find that they welcome people to come in and do physical activities with the residents.
Nice. Thanks so much, Erin. We'll call it a day with that. Everyone that's on the recording or watching afterwards, we'll share the slides that Erin sent through, and I'll send through the recording as well. It would be great to keep the conversation going, so we'll have a think about how we can do that. I think there were a lot of questions that came off this, particularly around language that we use, working, kind of how you get started, and also working with more established organizations to kind of introduce a bit more games and play into more established settings.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I'd love to keep that conversation going.
Thanks. Great. I think from us, just a big thanks, Erin. That was really fascinating. I feel like my brain is absolutely full of ideas and questions for you. Next month, our movement lab is on multi-generational movement and how you can get the whole family out, and that will be with Andrew from Wildstrong. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much, Erin.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.